Hey, it's Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is going to be my top 10 recommended holiday games, or call it what you will. The purpose of this list, and this is a viewer, a commenter in one of my videos suggested this, and I think it's a great idea given the season, but this list specifically is the idea that at some points during the year, obviously now, Christmas, Hanukkah, who knows what else, people are sometimes with family, and then COVID abounds, and so who knows how that plays out, but for those who are hanging out with family, for those who are hanging out with a bunch of people who, in this hypothetical scenario, do not play games the same way, the same extent we do, what are good games to introduce them to? I'm not someone who likes pushing my hobby onto others just for the sake of doing so, but sometimes when you're with people you like, you want to have a good time, and sometimes they're open to a good time. And so, before you pull that food chain magnet off the shelf, before you grab Blood Rage or, I don't know, Brass Birmingham or whatnot, and smack it down the table, teach them the rules, have them sleeping halfway through, here are my top 10 games that I would recommend bringing to the table, ranked from the most accessible and partyish down to a little bit more drifting towards strategy, trying to get different player counts, different mindsets, different aspects to the table. And to begin with, I'm going to start with one that's a little differently in its game aspect. So this one's going to be a little bit more strategic, but I felt it was outside the realm of the rest of this list, and that is going to be unlock games. Unlock games are basically escape rooms in a box. And there's other games in the genre as well. There's the entire Exit series, which I know some people prefer. For myself, I drastically prefer the unlock experience. I drastically prefer the way these games bring that puzzle, that escape room to the table. These games tend to play well between 2 to 4 players. Once you get to 5, it tends to be a bit too much of a mess of everyone trying to look at the cards. But the nice thing about a box like this is this one has 3 unlock games in it. And there's a whole host of them in this series. And so this has 3 distinct adventures. The No Side Show, Arlene Lupin and the Great White Diamond, and Lost in the Warp. And I haven't played any of these yet, by the way. There's tons I have played, tons I haven't. But they all bring different escape rooms to the table. And so, if you have 2, 3, or 4 players, just play one of these. If you have 4, 5, 6, or more, you can split it up into multiple groups, playing different escape rooms, having that element, that little puzzle on the table. I think it's a great choice, a great way to introduce people to board games in a way that's not really threatening. It's an escape room after all. It's barely a board game. And so that would be my pick number 1, an unlock or any escape room game. My pick number 2 is going to be the most partyish of all of them. And this is where we get to a few party games, followed by slowly escalating the strategy in there. And this is going to be Monikers. Monikers is a game that, well, this is an amazing game. This is my favorite party game by far, and I want to be very clear here. There are so many good games I passed up in an attempt to try to cover different genres and get certain games to the table. Dixit is a game that you should 100% look into outside the realm of this video, because for me, the ultimate gamer's party game is Monikers. This is a game, I did a play this not that once with Codenames and Monikers. They both bring different things to the table, and I'm making a mess here as I go. But Monikers has this aspect where you're going to have different cards, and the cards on them are going to have different text. And you start off by passing the cards around, you read them, and it's the alter ego of comedian Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman. And you go through reading the cards directly so that you have an opportunity to just, figure out what's in there. But then as you go through the game, as you go through the 3 rounds of the game, you will slowly but surely escalate the way the game progresses, because in round 2, you're suddenly only limited to 1 word. Suddenly you have to say alter, which is probably a terrible clue now that I think about it, but then someone says Herman. And then the next round, the 3rd round, you have to act out that clue. What starts off as a simple taboo-like experience rapidly escalates into, well, absolute chaos and absolute madness as everyone at the table starts getting involved in their own little metagame of how Monikers plays out, of what little clues you have. You will have people saying things that don't even correlate at all. But through the course of this 30 to 60 minute experience, you develop your own little inside jokes that become the soul and flavor of this game. Monikers is a game that should be on everyone's table. Heavy hardcore gamer versus, I guess if you live alone and you don't hang out with people, this is probably a bad game. There's no real solo mode. But then again, why are you watching this video then? That's a terrible choice. I don't know. I have plenty of other videos. I have a top 10 solo games video that I'll link to down below, but in case you stumbled on the wrong video by mistake. And from there, we'll go to number 3, which is going to be Timeline. Timeline, far less known and far less loved than Monikers, is one that for me has never failed to let me down. This is a game where you're going to have different cards, and on each card there'll be the front and the back of the card. The front might say toothbrush, and the back has the date that the toothbrush was invented. Can you think of a year that the toothbrush was invented? Think if you know that. Because I believe it's roughly in the 1400s based on this game. I don't remember exactly when it was, but apparently it's pretty old. But the game isn't pure guessing, because pure guessing alone would just be trivia, and I'm not that much a fan of trivia myself. Rather, the game has a card row. As you place these cards down, you start creating a timeline, a literal timeline of events and inventions that have happened throughout the course of this game. And so you don't actually have to figure out when the toothbrush was invented, but you may have to choose whether it was invented between 1763 and 1521 or 1521 and 1387. You start slowly slotting the timeline, and as you do so, the timeline becomes harder and harder to fill because the gaps between the years become harder. The goal is to get rid of your 5 cards first, and it starts off easy and gets progressively harder. You start getting to a point where you just don't know. But you're still making educated guesses. This is half strategy, half educated guesses, half education. You end up learning a lot of things. I never knew that about the toothbrush, and there's so many other inventions that I had no concept of when they were invented until I played Timeline. And there's again, like Monikers, like Unlock, there's a whole host of different expansion packs you can get in case you ever find yourself knowing too much in this genre. Next up from there will be Codenames Duet and Codenames. And I'm bringing both to the table here, both because this is a board game code video, and our top 10 lists, we always try to get as many games as we can into them. But more specifically because it depends on who you're playing with, how many people you're playing with. If it's just the two of you, Codenames Duet is going to be your go-to. But if you're playing with more, go with Codenames. Both of these are incredible experiences. I think Codenames Pictures is okay, not quite as good. And then the offshoots, Codenames Marvel, Codenames Monopoly, Codenames Harry Potter or whatnot, I don't find they deliver the same experience quite as much. But Codenames is a game that you put these clues on the table, and then you take these different teams and you have to figure out how to give the ideal clue, how to say something that will correctly pinpoint to your partners, to your teammates, which cards to guess, while also avoiding all the cards on the table that might be no one's or the other team's or perhaps a death card. And so you have to figure out how to sit there and say, Turkey 3. And then they have to figure out Turkey 3, what did he mean? Well, chicken's right there. Perhaps he meant chicken. Chicken could be viable. It also says oil. I mean, probably oil, right? It does say oil. At the same time, it says farmer. Farmers have potatoes. I mean, is that correlated? You start going through these mind games of trying to figure out what that person had in mind. Because some of them will be obvious. That chicken is almost certainly correctly there. Unless, of course, Peter didn't realize that chicken was on the table when he gave that clue. And now someone picks chicken and Peter's like, oh no, I didn't see it. Either way, strategy and hilarity ensue in Codenames and in Codenames Pictures. They are both excellent games. Codenames has a little more of a party feel. Codenames Duet has a little more of a strategic feel. Both of them are excellent additions to any collection, and both of them are great games to introduce your family to when you head home for the holidays or whatnot. Just, a random weekend, because maybe you're watching this video 4 months from now and who knows what's going on. Next up from there is where we start introducing a little bit more strategy, yet still hilarity in the mix. And that's going to be with Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a game that, well, it is hilarious, and it is going to result in laughter and convincing your friends to try to mess with each other, and then rolling dice and seeing how it plays out, and people will be cracking up throughout the course of this game, I guarantee it. But it also has strategy, it also has choices, it also has decisions you will have to make as you figure out how to win this game, because in Las Vegas, what you're doing is there are multiple casinos, and each casino has different monetary values you have to manage in terms of they're going to have, between, 50 and 100 money at each casino. And then you roll your dice, and you place all the dice of one number at one of those casinos. And then you go to the next person, they roll their dice, they keep going around. But whichever number you pick, you have to place all of one. So if you roll 2 2s and 4 3s, you might have to choose between placing both 2s or all the 3s. And you go round and around loading up the casinos, but the fun of this game is that whoever has the most dice at a casino will win the money there. But whoever has the same number of dice as another player, both those people will withdraw, getting their dice back, and the next person will win. And so you have these constant moments where you're like, go, no, go, you can make it, you can win, there's a lot of money there. And then they roll 1, and then they're tied, and suddenly someone else who placed only 1 die there ends up getting everything. The game has so many different instances or ways that they will play out, and people will be laughing while also collecting a lot of money. There's strategy and fun to be had in Las Vegas. And then from there, running out of space here, from there, we're going to move to Terra. And this is going to be another twofer, so technically we're at 12 games already, but this is going to be Terra and America as well, for those who prefer that as a genre. Terra is a game that does have It does have trivia. Similar to Timeline, it has aspects of trivia to the game, but in a way that is far more focused on the strategy of the game than it is on actually knowing things. And another good correlation, another good option here is going to be Wits and Wages, which does something similar. But the idea of Terra is that you're going to have questions, and then you're going to start placing clues on the board. So you might have a question about where someone traveled, where elephants exist, and people have to put their cubes on the board, wagering where they think those things will happen. And you can double down on other people's knowledge and experience, which is one of the fun things. When Jack at the table put a cube so quickly down in North Africa, was it because he knew it, or is he bluffing you out? And you slowly but surely place your cubes and you get points not for just being right, but for being adjacent to being right on both the timeline and on the physical map. Terra gives you so many different options to try to figure out the answers to those questions. If you have someone at your table who likes trivia to a degree, well then Terra is going to be a great choice. It's going to give them that trivia feel, while also rewarding strategic play. You don't have to know everything in this game. You just have to know enough to know what the right judgment call is. And America is going to do the exact same thing, but with a slight difference in the gameplay itself, but the same basic idea, just more focused on American trivia as opposed to worldwide trivia. So two different sides of the same coin, both excellent additions to anyone's collection who likes, well, games that play well at 4, 5, or 6 players. You could do it at 3. I wouldn't recommend it. There's better games to play at 3 players. And from there, we move to Marvel United. And this one, when picking this list, there were so many different games that I passed up on. So many different games. Like I mentioned already, Dixit would be such a great choice. There's so many good choices. I started to realize how many games I have in my collection that are accessible to people who aren't sucked into the world of board games the way I am. And Marvel United isn't necessarily the top of that list, but it is Marvel, which does bring its own merit to the table. If you have family members, if you have anyone at your table who is a Marvel fan or is a superhero fan, or could be pulled into this game where a game less like Las Vegas or Codenames might require convincing, well then I do think Marvel United is an excellent game. In Marvel United, this is a cooperative game, and in this game what you're going to be doing is you're going to have your heroes and they're going to be going around the board, and you have to work in unison. You have to work as a team, cooperating extensively to capitalize on your teammates' actions, because you will play a card and you will get a move and a fight or whatever it is you get. But then when your opponent plays, not your opponent, when your teammate plays the next card, they will get the actions on their card, but also the actions on your card. And this lends itself to a very collaborative nature around the table as you sit there and say, well, I can take out this henchman over here by doing 2 fight actions, but sir, can you use 2 fight actions? Because I'll do something else if you can't use them. And you have that experience, that aspect of talking to each other, of working together. And that's something that I think is laudable, working together in games in a truly collaborative nature in less of an alpha player mode. And this does remove the alpha player problem to a degree, because people have their own closed hands of cards. You could have someone walk in here and alpha player the heck out of it, but don't be friends with that person, just don't play this game with that person. You can still be friends with them. But in any case, Marvel United I think is a great choice, being both a great game, an accessible game, and also sucking people in who might just be a superhero fan. And from there, escalating the strategy once again, we have Barenpark. Now, Barenpark is a light game, to be sure, but it is one of my favorite polyomino games, and it's one that's great for all age ranges as well. This is a game that I have successfully played with anyone from ages of 5 to 40, and I think above 40, I just don't think I've played with anyone above 40, but I'm sure it'd be good for them too. But Barenpark is an excellent game that manages to capture you at all different age levels. It has an incredible art. It has simple gameplay, yet simple gameplay that doesn't come at the cost of strategic depth. My 5-year-old has consistently enjoyed playing this game. I don't think he's ever won this game, but he's enjoyed placing his beers down on that table, trying to build his little park out, grabbing one tile after another. They love grabbing the slides. One of those little green tiles they have on the side is a slide. They love grabbing the slides in the bathrooms and slotting them in, even though it's nowhere near as efficient as you actually could be. But it doesn't matter, because games are about fun. And so while your kid is sitting there having a good time, you can still be playing on the same level with other adults at the table, trying to min-max your way into achieving your goals, into closing out your park, into being as efficient as possible with the pieces that you are being dealt in Barenpark. It is an excellent polyomino game. It is one of my favorite, and then of course, because I have to, Project L was another one that I left off this list, but similar properties. Next up, number 9 is going to be Welcome to, or number 14. Who knows? Depends how you count all those extra ones I throw in. Welcome to Your Perfect Home is a great one. Now, I have plenty of roll and writes, and I think this is my only one on the list, but I left off a lot of them, and I chose this because of the variable player count benefits of this. This is a game that you can play at 2 players, and it's equally a game that you can play with 30 people at the table. You genuinely can. All you need is more pens or pencils, because the game comes with like 8 pencils, but the more people you'll need pens, pencils, and then there's just pads of paper. This is a great holiday gift. Walk into someone's house with 15 people, hand them all a sheet of paper, teach them the game, hand them all a bunch of pencils, and then go through a few rounds. You might use up all the pads of paper in this game, but you'll have a fun time, and for 20, 30 bucks, I think that's well worth it. This game comes with like 100 plus sheets or something like that. It would take you a few games with a lot of people to actually use them all up. But in Welcome 2, it's a flip and write card game. What you're going to do is you're going to flip a card. It's going to give you both a number and then an action attached to that number. And the combination therein, there's 3 different options of those configurations on the table. So you'll have, 3 and 7 and 10, and then you'll have a tree and I don't remember the actions, the fence and the raising your points in one of these things, which sounds abstracted. But the point is, you will choose one of those actions on the table. So everyone is given the exact same sheet to start with. Everyone is given the exact same cards every single round. But how you choose your cards and where you apply those numbers, whether you put a tree on this block or a fence on that block, or maybe we both take trees, but I put mine here and you put yours there, all those will lend itself to building a better neighborhood. A better neighborhood being defined as more points, which is ultimately how you define how good a neighborhood you should move to. Whenever I'm looking to move, I look to move to the neighborhood with the most points, which is a weird random tangent, but either way, the point is that Welcome 2 is a great game, easy to teach, easy to play, and it plays well at any player count. I think it plays at 1 player. It says 1 to 100. I guess there's a solo mode. I haven't played the solo mode, so, and again, if you're here looking for solo modes, you're in the wrong video. Link down below to top 10 solo games. I don't know what we're doing. And finally, last on the list, and this is the one that I think is an excellent choice for upping the strategy to the next level, is going to be Century Golem Edition. Now, Century Spice Road is going to be the exact same game with a different theme. I personally prefer Century Golem Edition, and more than that, I would argue the pretty gems, the pretty crystals in Century Golem Edition will make this a game that others will enjoy more. It will make this a game that the people at your table might be a little bit more intrigued when they pick up those pretty little gems and fiddle around with them. Century Spice Road, good game as well. I think this is a better choice for introducing people to this game. And in Century Golem Edition, it actually has strategy, but it has literally 1 page of rules, 2 sides, 1 little pamphlet. That's all you need. You can get people up and running within seconds. In fact, let's do it right now. You have 4 actions on your turn. As an action, you are either going to play a card, taking its action. Those actions will usually involve turning gems into other gems or converting your gems up a level. Option 2, buy a new card. Either take the leftmost card or put a gem on each card and then take that card that you land on. Option 3, trade in a bunch of gems in order to acquire one of the golems in this game. And that's how you're ultimately going to get the points and will be the trigger for endgame, which will be either 5 or 6 cards depending on the player count. Option 4, pick back up all your cards, because your cards have to be played, put down, and then you have to get them back after. And so that is going to be Century Golem Edition. Quick, simple, easy to teach, easy to play, beautiful to see. And, I mean, I literally taught you how to play it in, 30 seconds. Granted, a little bit more pointing at cards and giving people time to actually comprehend is probably a good thing. But nonetheless, the point is, Century Golem Edition is an excellent game, one you should be adding to your collection if you don't already have it, and one that you should be introducing your family to if you're looking for something, well, in that vein, in that genre. And these will be my top 10 holiday games or whatnot, top 10 games to play with family. I'll figure out the title later. Ultimately, they are all great choices for introducing people to having fun with others through games without overloading them with, like I said, feasts for Odin on your dining room table in the middle of your Christmas dinner or whatnot. Until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please comment down below with what you would recommend for someone else, because like I said, I had 40, 50 titles I would have liked to include in this video. There's so many good choices, all of them having a different reason for why they are being picked. So do what I couldn't. Add them in the comments down below. Tell other people what things they should be keeping an eye on to add or to bring to their family. Until next time, have a good one.